Tonight on The Wrap, a dramatic development in the Peter Mandelson investigation. Police searched 2 properties linked to the disgraced former ambassador amid allegations he passed market-sensitive information to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Also tonight, the White House blames a member of staff for a video on Donald Trump's social media account depicting the Obamas as apes. As Steve Wright is sentenced for a 6th murder, a woman targeted by him in the 90s tells Sky News the women he killed may still be alive if police had taken her seriously.
The police came, but they didn't believe me at all. They treated me like a silly little girl.
And after days of bizarre controversies, the curtain is raised on the Winter Olympics in Italy. We discuss the day's biggest stories with Zoe Williams from The Guardian and Henry Hill from Conservative Home. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Good evening. Well, it's been a week since US officials released 3.5 million documents relating to Jeffrey Epstein, ending the political career of Peter Mandelson and perhaps signalling the beginning of the end for Sir Keir Starmer's time in Number 10. Zoe, is it the beginning of the end?
So I think the thing about Mandelson, which has been true since the 90s, is that however bad it looks at the beginning, it's going to look worse by the time everything's come out. And that is the catastrophic failure of judgment. They should have known that about him. It's been always true.
Henry?
I mean, it's the same. Peter Mandelson left government in disgrace twice when I was at school. Why on earth would you bring him back for him to do it again?
That is the question. Why? Well, tonight, signs that the police investigation into Peter Mandelson is gathering pace. A warning there's some flash photography coming up. Well, officers searched 2 properties linked to the disgraced former ambassador this evening, one in North London, the other in Wiltshire. Mandelson is being investigated over allegations of misconduct in public office amid claims he passed sensitive government information to Epstein while he was a cabinet minister. Tonight, the Prime Minister has written to Parliament's security watchdog, which will assess which documents relating to Peter Mandelson can be made public. In his letter to the Intelligence and Security Committee, Sir Keir Starmer says the government will work quickly and transparently, but he warned a very significant volume of material will need to be reviewed. Well, our political correspondent, Rob Powell, joins us in the studio now. Various developments this evening, Rob.
Yeah, and I think the images of police officers walking into Peter Mandelson's 2 homes, politically, I think it kind of cranks up the queeze factor for backbench Labour MPs, for ministers in the Labour government as well. You know, it's just pretty astonishing, isn't it, when you think back to what the pitch was from Labour when they came in. And the kind of mind game that I always tend to play when you get stories like this as well is, what would some of the senior people in the Labour government be saying if this was a sort of Conservative appointee that was having their home raided by the police? And, you know, it beggars belief, really. So they spent about 2 or 3 hours there, police officers. From about 4 o'clock, they were in to Peter Mandelson's home in Wiltshire and his home in Regent's Park in central North London as well. We saw them leaving with boxes. I guess it's not unexpected, given we know that the investigation is going on. You suppose the next step may well be at some point that there is a Mandelson interview that is done, that the police call him in for interview. They haven't got to that stage as yet. What are MPs saying? Well, as the news came in, I was texting one and said, have you seen Mandelson's houses are being raided by police? And I just got a good back from them. So, like I say, I don't think it changes the fundamental dynamics of where we are politically with Keir Starmer's position and Morgan McSweeney's position, but it just kind of cranks up the volume a little bit and makes people start to feel even more uneasy because of those scenes that we've been seeing of coppers going into the ex-US ambassador's house.
I'm going to push you for a bit of a prediction. Do you think we're likely to see any resignations from Cabinet, potentially?
It doesn't feel like that at Cabinet level, as it stands. It doesn't feel like there is people waiting to go over the top. I mean, even by the sort of standards of Westminster, the rumour mill has been going into overdrive this evening. But that mainly has been focused on officials. So I think who we're talking about is Morgan McSweeney. Now, none of that has materialised. The official channels coming out of government insist that these are rumours that have been kicking off every evening for the last few days and that it's not going to happen. But what's interesting when you're talking to MPs is that the people that are willing to go on the record and say the PM has to go, I think, without sounding sort of dismissive or disparaging, because they're very serious allegations of things that have gone on and very serious developments, they're sort of what Number 10 would probably put in the box mark the usual suspects. They're people that have been quite critical anyway. I think there's a bigger group in the centre that are not the usual suspects, who are not necessarily calling for the PM to go, but do think that other people around him should go, and I think that leads you to Morgan McSweeney.
Zoe, this group in the centre, do you think they're going to have that sway to even potentially bring Sir Keir Starmer down?
What I've thought is that the people sent out to defend him are making very, very weak cases, and they're not defending him very wholeheartedly, I don't think. So, you know, I don't know if you heard Mike Tapp this morning. He was basically saying, how could anybody withstand the lies of Peter Mandelson? And that's been a really common line. But, you know, anybody could withstand those lies. All you have to do is not believe them, as people have been not believing them for decades. So the weakness of his loyal base is really salient, as much as that kind of undeclared centre. And you've got to remember that he famously doesn't really have a group of ultra-loyalists behind him. He never has had. So he's had Morgan McSweeney as his henchman, but that's quite a thin relationship. That's not a relationship that has deep roots in any part of the party. And I think that's partly why Peter Mandelson came to such prominence again, because him and Morgan McSweeney were so tight, and Keir didn't have any base that could tell him that judgment wasn't really helping anybody except Mandelson and McSweeney.
Henry, what have you thought of the Prime Minister's defence to date and the defence that those have put forward around him?
I think the whole thing is ridiculous. I mean, can I believe that somewhere along the line things have emerged which have come as a surprise to Sir Keir Starmer? Obviously, probably true. But the failure of judgment is right at the beginning. Right? It is appointing Peter Mandelson in the first place. And then, for a man who places such stock on procedure and who used to attack Boris Johnson so much for the way that he would flout conventions and things like that, the procedure worked. They said, don't appoint Peter Mandelson. And then he did it anyway. And so I think in a democratic constitution, there are times when a Prime Minister needs to be able to make a personal decision on an appointment against official advice. But if they do that, then one of the reasons they don't do it very often is they have to own the consequences. And whatever the specifics about which the Prime Minister has been surprised, he made a decision he knows he shouldn't have taken.
The big question is why. You know, there have been arguments put forth that it's because of Mandelson's brilliance, that it was a risk worth taking.
The honest reason why he was appointed as ambassador is because it was considered that he was exactly as sycophantic and oily to get on with Donald Trump. If we'd seen Kamala Harris win the election, would Mandelson have been the only man in the country who could have been chosen? Absolutely not. There's no way he would have got near that job. So it was for precisely the reason that he was Epstein's friend that he was also the only man who could have been ambassador to the US with Donald Trump in the presidency. And that is because he could fake or even believe this respect for wealth and bombast and power, which no kind of true Labour figure could. Well, OK, and at the time, many of us said in public to the Labour government, OK, maybe he is the only man sycophantic enough to get on with Donald Trump, but why are we having this orientation towards the United States when they're kind of skirting towards such completely vile politics? And it's been frankly disgusting how much that view, that kind of call to Labour values has been completely sidelined in favour of, realpolitik. Now, you can't realpolitik your way into a nice relationship with a neo-fascist. It's really difficult.
Rob, why is it, though, that the Prime Minister refused to listen to the advice coming from within the Labour Party? We had MPs like Diane Abbott saying that why would you appoint Peter Mandelson when he's shown a history of leaving government in disgrace in these exact circumstances?
I mean, I think he'd probably dismiss Diane Abbott because she's from a different section of the party to him. I mean, but that's not to say that there weren't other figures closer, very close to Number 10 that were advising against this. The Times front page for tomorrow carries a report about how Angela Rayner apparently was advising against this. Now, sort of reached out to some people around her who were saying, well, they would never, ever discuss private conversations had between Angela Rayner and the Prime Minister at the time.
It's funny how they end up on the front page of the Times, though, isn't it?
But then, I mean, this is why I think, again, it comes back to Morgan McSweeney, because we know that that's a relationship that dates back between him and Peter Mandelson. We know that the sort of, I think, the absence almost of being able to navigate the Whitehall machine and do the Westminster politics. I think Morgan McSweeney could do the sort of countrywide politics and the campaigning politics, but then when they moved into Westminster, not only did there seem to be no plan, there seemed to be no strategy to sort of get their plan into action there as well. And I think what they did was they pressed the big red button marked Peter Mandelson.
I think the thing is, there was a plan, but their only plan ever has been to quash the left of their own party. And once all of those people were quashed or expelled or sidelined or disillusioned, there was no road left. I mean, what do you do after you have quashed the left, if that's your only goal?
Henry, very quickly before we move on, do you think all roads do lead to Morgan McSweeney?
Certainly, because if nothing else, it's displacement activity. We were talking about that middle ground of MPs earlier. You see it in the Tories as well. Oh, the Tsar loves his people, but it's his nefarious advisers. They're the problem. But has it ever worked? Has deposing the advisers ever actually saved a regime?
Buys
and it's
you
come
time,
back to...
but it doesn't save.
Exactly. Theresa May limped on for 2 years, but her government was dead in the water the moment she had to ditch her advisers. And I think it's the same here.
That's a long time to limp on, though. That buys an awful lot of time.
I mean, she was suffering every minute of it.
Yeah, she was.
OK, well, so 3.5 million documents relating to Jeffrey Epstein have now been published. Like news organisations across the globe, we've been trawling the files and our correspondents have been going through what we found so far.
Finally, this was it. The Epstein files in their entirety.
We are producing more than 3 million pages, 2,000 videos, 180,000 images.
The fullest picture we have of the disgraced paedophile and sex trafficker.
I have pictures up on the wall.
The dozens of victims and the scale of his high-profile network.
They've been trying to stop Andrew from being a distraction, and now this has happened.
3 images appearing to show him on all fours over a woman.
From former royals to celebrities to politicians, these files continue to cause aftershocks around the world.
None of us knew the depth and the darkness of that relationship.
The Prince of Darkness is gone.
It's potentially the biggest political scandal of this century.
Most importantly, the survivors who have fought for years to bring these documents to life.
It is shocking, the damage that this Department of Justice has done with the way that they have released survivors' personal information.
We've gone through hundreds of thousands of files, emails, and photographs.
And if you want to take a full look at all of our findings this week on the Epstein files, you can scan the QR code on the right of your screen now. Next tonight, the most racist thing I've seen out of this White House. That's the verdict of a Republican senator this evening after Donald Trump's social media account posted a video in which Barack and Michelle Obama were depicted as apes. Let's bring in our US correspondent, Mark Stone now. Mark, fill us in on the background of the image that was posted, I think a couple of seconds of video material posted, and initially the White House being quite brazen about that going out on Truth Social.
Yeah, I think that's perhaps the most extraordinary, the second most extraordinary aspect of this, following the fact that it was posted in the first place. It was 11:45 last night when a video was posted on President Trump's Truth Social account, which is his dominant social media account, where he basically does everything. It was a video which most of it appeared to be a video about election fraud. But at the end, it looked like it was a screen recording. And at the end of that, it flipped onto another video, which was, as you say, a deeply, deeply offensive image or video of Michelle and Barack Obama. Now, when America woke up this morning, people saw it very quickly. It was everywhere. There was outrage across the board. And then a White House statement came out, which, as you say, it kind of almost owns it. Certainly doesn't appear to suggest that they're about to take it down. The statement from Caroline Leavitt said, "This is from an internet meme video depicting President Trump as the king of the jungle and the Democrats as characters from The Lion King." It goes on to say, "Please stop the fake outrage and report on something today that actually matters to the American public." Well, look, Gillian, I can tell you that the outrage was not fake. The outrage was very real, as you might expect, and it was across the political divide as well. As you say, Tim Scott, the only black Republican senator, very close to Donald Trump, he was outraged, and it trickled down from there. Chuck Schumer calling it abhorrent, racist, vile, calling for an apology. And then, after a couple of hours, and the post remained up on the president's account for 12 full hours, but then another statement came from the White House, which said said a White House staffer erroneously made the post. It has been taken down. And at that point, it did come down from the president's account. Incidentally, that raises quite a few new questions. What was a White House staffer doing on the president's social media account at 11:45 at night? That was only one of 71 different posts that were made between 11:45 last night and 5 a.m. this morning. And they ranged from stuff about polling, the post that we're talking about, other posts about election fraud, and even a meme about a dog as well. Were all those posts made by President Trump or by a staffer? We just don't know. But yeah, it has caused some ruffles here for sure over the course of the day.
Yeah, indeed, understatement. Zoe and Henry, I don't know if you have seen the post. Absolutely disgusting. I can't even believe that was put out from the president's account. And all those who say the president is not racist, what do they say now?
Well, exactly. And what you've got to remember is that he is trading on this. He is trading on making these openly racist gestures and then waiting for everybody to stand back in disbelief, fight amongst each other about how racist it actually is. Then there's a kind of weird, nonsensical apology, a very pugnacious statement from the press secretary. And what he's done is state a racist, a kind of neo-fascist agenda to his people and just waiting and watch the fallout. Now, it's an incredibly dangerous time for American politics, but it's a dangerous time for the international order as well, if we can't finally just wake up and call it.
Mm. And Henry, not to even... well, I don't know how you can apologise because it was deliberate, but the initial news conference, Caroline Leavitt, was saying that, as you heard in Mark's quote there, that really you need to get on with ordinary news and why are you making an issue of this? Yeah. So they weren't apologetic. They were defending it.
And I think that, I mean, it's obviously not the worst thing. The worst thing is the actual image. But it's one of these stories where, like, the more you look at it, even the excuses just raise more, like, horrible questions. Because, like, OK, maybe it was a staffer. Why does the staffer have a deeply racist image immediately coming up on their video algorithm, right? If that was just what happened, like, what are they watching? Why does it not occur to you straight away, oh, my goodness, we've traded one of the oldest racist memes, right? This isn't one of those ones, this isn't something where it's sort of from the woke era or anything like that, This is one of the most transparently racist images you can possibly do. So the fact that the White House just didn't have sirens going off the moment they realised this had happened just shows, I think, just how deep the rot actually is.
But there is also, when you look at it in context of the other things he was posting at that time of night, it's all meeting an agenda, which you can see quite clearly from his statements and social media output. The first is this obsession with electoral fraud. He's investigating, federal agents are investigating offices in Georgia, removing ballot papers from 6 years ago. That is all an attempt to delegitimise the midterms, at the same time as making these massive vice signals, this huge kicking down the door to the kind of racism that is allowable in the public sphere so that the next person can be even more racist. I mean, it's a pincer movement of radical right politics. And the faster his own party can call it, the faster the constitutional forces around him can regroup, the better, because they're dealing with something that cannot be apologised for, even if the apologies were meant, which I don't think they were.
Mm. And what do you think the president was trying to achieve? I mean, this tweet clearly came, not tweet, social, Truth Social post, clearly came from him, because there's no staffer that's going to be around at 11:45 at night posting on his behalf. And the White House made a big thing about him actually posting himself. But what do you think he was trying to achieve?
I mean, so I've not seen the video, and so it sounds as if, you know, maybe it rolled onto something else, and then he just let it go because he doesn't have the thing in your head that says maybe this is an enormously racist gesture, which is extraordinary, because the thing is, when we talk about sort of dog whistle racist politics, I actually don't know what section even of the hard right, not the fascist far right, but what percentage of the hard right would think that that was acceptable now, right? Like, this is not typically what you get when you talk about racist discourse, even in the United States. It's just absolutely, sorry, it's just absolutely extraordinary. So what was he doing? I think it's probably... There's a danger that we always overread. I think overread Donald Trump a little bit, that we project onto him this grand sort of chess mastery vision. I think that he's just an old man who posted something which he didn't notice was terrible because he has some awful views. And then the one thing he absolutely hates is apologising, and so he doubled down. And I think that that shows something rancid about, obviously, him and about his White House administration, that nobody was saying this earlier. But I don't know if every single move he makes is part of some grand 4D chess plan, because I just don't think, actually, he's that intelligent.
I know, but
in your eyes, though, just quickly, I just want to get this thought from both of you.
Yeah.
Does it prove to you that he is a racist?
Yeah.
Zoe?
Yes, it does, but it's really much more important than overreading Trump is avoiding underreading him, because it's Pascal's wager, man. It's like if you overread him and you turn out to be wrong and he was just an idiot, then no harm, no foul. If you underread him and it turns out it was part of a plan, and the plan was to normalise racism in the public discourse in order to brutalise people of colour, which we've seen some evidence of, then you're going to really be kicking yourself if you didn't plan for it.
Yeah, I mean, if a racist tells you they're racist once and twice and a third time, you believe them. Should we move on to another, disturbing story? A woman targeted by serial killer Steve Wright has told Sky News that the 6 women he murdered may still be alive today if the police had taken her seriously. Wright, who's already serving a whole life term, was sentenced to at least 40 years in prison today for the murder of Victoria Hall in 1999. The night before, he tried to abduct Emily Doherty. She's spoken exclusively to Sky's Emma Birchley and told her that when she reported the incident, police treated her like a silly little girl.
For 26 years, Emily Doherty has felt sure the man who tried to abduct her was the same man who would kidnap 17-year-old Vicky Hall 2 miles up the road and then murder her.
I thought that must be him. It can't be a coincidence. The next night, someone else.
Steve Wright would go on to become one of the country's most notorious serial killers, nicknamed the Suffolk Strangler. But when Emily, then aged 22, reported what had happened, she felt no one was listening.
The police came, but they didn't believe me at all. They treated me like a silly little girl.
Wright was already serving a whole life term for murdering 5 sex workers in 2006, now sentenced to a minimum of 40 years for Vicky's murder after pleading guilty at the Old Bailey on Monday.
Even if this was your only life sentence, given your obvious dangerousness and your age, it is extraordinarily unlikely you would ever be released. Given the sentence already imposed for your other dreadful crimes, it is well nigh certain you will die in prison.
Earlier, the judge had questioned whether the police had explored any connection between what happened to Emily and Vicky back in 1999, asking if there had or would be an inquiry into what went wrong. So far, there hasn't. The investigation was only reopened in 2019.
The strength of our case, which featured a wealth of evidence, gave him little option but to admit his guilt. Quite simply, he represents the very worst of humanity and is exactly where he belongs, in prison.
The memories of that night remain clear in Emily's mind.
I remember the first instance I saw him. The door was open, the engine was running and he was standing by the car. He saw me and I saw him. I bricked it, I pegged it.
She jumped over walls, knocked on doors with no response, at one point peering around the corner on all fours to see if he'd gone.
Suddenly, He was literally right there. He stepped right into me. He said, "All right," in a low, sleazy way. In that instance, I knew my life was in danger.
Eventually, someone did open their door and called 999. But in court, it was revealed that no crime report was lodged and no lead came from the partial number plate Emily provided, despite the fact that only 2 cars featuring the right letters and number were registered in relevant locations, and one of them was Wright's. The night Vicky disappeared, she'd left her friend just 300 metres from her home after walking back from a club in the early hours. Shortly after, screams were heard, as well as a car being driven away at speed. It would take 5 days for her body to be found by a dog walker, dumped naked in a ditch 25 miles away. Vicky's mum died in December, never knowing for sure that Wright had killed her daughter.
Victoria was a loving girl with a whole life before her, with plans of what she wanted to achieve. All this was snatched away from her by Steve Wright. We lost our lovely daughter, sister, niece, granddaughter, have endured 26 years of hell, which will continue from today onwards and forever.
The police say DNA advances helped achieve justice.
This was always about Victoria Hall and her family. They've been front and centre and a consistent source of motivation to the police investigation team. They have shown strength, courage, dignity and support to the investigation team, and our thoughts remain with them today and for the time ahead.
Questions remain about whether there'll be an inquiry into potential missed opportunities. It's something Emily would certainly welcome.
There's the guilt of not being heard. You can't help thinking, if they had taken me seriously, Vicky would have survived. But certainly if they had found him sooner, the 5 other women might still be here.
Emma Birchley, Sky News at the Old Bailey.
Zoe, this reflects really poorly on the police, doesn't it?
It does reflect poorly on the police, and it also begs the question, how much has really improved? Because not only is police response in the immediate moment really, really important, but women have to believe that they'll be taken seriously from other cases and other experiences and word of mouth in order to go to the police at all themselves. So, you know, every single story like this makes it more problematic, bringing convictions.
Henry?
I think the extraordinary thing is, even if you were, for whatever reason, minded to dismiss this on its own, when a dead woman was found in the area the next day, that's surely the point at which you go, oh, hang on a minute, maybe this report of a stalker trying to attack a woman is something we should look into. I would really deeply like to know, if there is an investigation, what the process was that led to that not being followed up.
Just to say, Suffolk Police released a statement in which they say, in the light of the guilty plea by Steve Wright for the murder of Victoria Hall in 1999, the joint major investigation team are appealing for information relating to him and his possible previous offending. So that's their response tonight to the criticism. OK, let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers, what's on those front pages. Do stay with us.
best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Time now to see what's making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Well, the front pages are dominated by the police raid on Peter Mandelson's homes, and the Eye reports that the 72-year-old is likely to be questioned in the coming days. The Mail pictures police knocking on the door of his £12 million London home. The Sun characterises the police search as rummaging through Mandy's drawers. The Telegraph also leads on the same story, while the Times reports that Angela Rayner has told friends she warned the Prime Minister against appointing Mandelson as US ambassador. The FT looks at worries amongst Starmer allies of market turmoil if MPs move against him. The Guardian claims a Labour minister commissioned an intelligence report on journalists investigating the Labour Together think tank, which helped propel Sir Keir Starmer to power. Sky News has been told Labour Together did hire the company in question, but did so to investigate the sourcing of stories, not to dig up information on journalists. Mr Simons has told us tonight that the claims are nonsense. The Mirror hears from a woman who escaped the Suffolk Strangler, Steve Wright, who says there was a missed chance to stop him, as we heard in our exclusive interview with her. A death wish for the BBC. That's how the rise in the TV licence fee is described in The Express. So let's start with The Times, and this is Angela Rayner saying that she did actually advise Sir Keir Starmer against appointing Mandelson. Zoe.
So Angela Rayner, I'm sure correctly points out that she said for exactly the reason that has unravelled him, don't appoint Mandelson, not because he's not your politics, not because he's incredibly difficult to get on with, but specifically because he was such a close friend of Epstein's, even after the conviction, even after he knew he was staying in the properties, even after Epstein had been pleaded guilty. So there was a very strong case for these reasons for Angela to make that point. What's interesting about her coming out now with it is obviously she's waiting for the other people to get roped in, because at the moment it's Keir Starmer's problem. It's very soon going to be Wes Streeting's problem because they were as thick as thieves. At the moment it's slightly Morgan McSweeney's problem, but nobody's really turned up the bodies on that. You know, I can remember Peter Mandelson giving an absolutely oleaginous interview about Morgan McSweeney saying there's a special place in heaven for the man who made Morgan McSweeney. I mean, it's so disgusting, you know, that kind of capture of the inner circle of the Labour Party, which didn't really reflect even the cabinet, let alone the wider parliamentary party, let alone the members. And Angela Rayner is just making damn sure she's on the side of the I told you so's, not the side of the I'm going to be taken down with him.
But further proof that she is on manoeuvres, regardless of what her friends close to her are saying.
I was going to say, you have to love the form. We still have the forms and rituals of this, because Angela Rayner technically hasn't said anything to the journalists. What happens is she's told friends about her conversations about Jeffrey Epstein, and they have gone and told the press about them, which was very good of them. I mean, yeah, it's obviously a leadership manoeuvre. It'd be very unusual and perhaps sort of slightly refreshing if just once a senior politician went, well, actually, I thought this terrible thing was actually a good idea. And I told the Prime Minister that at the time. But, yeah, it's all about positioning. The assumption is, I think, at some point, even if it isn't now, that the Prime Minister is fatally weakened. The odds of him reaching the end of the Parliament are getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. And so it's exactly as Zoe says, essentially. It's when Labour members are choosing the next leader, if there is a full leadership contest, who do they associate with being on the right side of this story? And you want to get out there and establish that as quickly as possible.
Quote here, one cabinet minister said they believe Starmer was so frustrated with his mistake that he could stand down. His allies are saying that's completely untrue, and he's not considering quitting.
His allies are saying that, and I think, who knows, though? His allies are very, very staunch on the fact that he doesn't need to stand down, but they may not have got the message that he wants to, because the communications in that bit of the party have never been great. What I didn't really consider is that Wes Streeting it does put Wes Streeting in a very difficult position because he can't take any advantage of Starmer's own position because he was much closer to Mandelson than Keir Starmer was. There's bound to be things that come out of his communications with Mandelson. If he wants to have any shot at the leadership, he needs Starmer to survive long enough that we're talking about something other than this. In which case, he needs him to survive until May, and so that the reason he's leaving is because of the May massacre rather than the Mandelson mess. But, you know, it won't ultimately be up to Wes Streeting when this all unravels. It does have the feeling of a bankruptcy. First it unfolded quite slowly and now it's going very fast.
Yeah, and coincidentally, on The Times, that they're saying the allies of Rayner said they believe that Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, would be ruined by the mass disclosure of all communications with Mandelson in coming months.
Well, I mean, they would certainly hope so. I suppose we'll have to see. But maybe they're just trying to give journalists a little idea of somewhere where they could be looking. But it's a bit shameless, the manoeuvring. But again, when we now change leaders so often that I think that people are much less likely to be reticent than they used to be. You know, we used to have one change of Prime Minister, less than once a Parliament, actually, once upon a time. But now that we've moved to a more sort of Italian model of throwing out our Prime Ministers every couple of years, you really do need to be, I think, much hotter on it than you used to be.
Yeah, you're right. Shameless is the word, but they're always shameless when they're the guys you don't like, and they're always brave when they're the guys you do.
I call them all shameless, but then I don't like any of them.
I know.
What was that? You said you don't like any of them.
Well, you know, just going through the social media output of some of the kind of Labour figures, I'm thinking about Luke Akehurst's tweet from a couple of years ago saying Mandelson made this party and he became a man in it. It's just so...
He won't want that to
grim. No, he
post
won't want
unearthed today, will he? Shall we move on to other subjects? Because we could speak all evening on this. But let's go to the Times, page 2. Two-thirds of councils are forced to raise council tax. Henry?
So essentially, this is in part about a change the Labour government has made to local government financing. Essentially, when she was in office, Angela Rayner changed the funding mechanism so that more money went to some Labour councils and less to some Tory councils. But it's more about just the fundamental rolling crisis in British local government. Essentially, we now have about 100 councils or more, which the only reason that they're not already insolvent is that the government has introduced special measures, which means that large parts of their debt don't count. I've not yet quite worked out how that works financially, but it does for now. And the reason for this is that in order to hide spending, effectively, central government has made local authorities responsible for things like special needs, social care, and then forced all of that spending onto their books and not adequately funded it. And we've talked about, you know, what will it be that brings down to Keir Starmer? Will it be this? Will it be the May elections? If it's neither of those things, it could well be a mass collapse of local authorities across England and Wales. And so...
Do you think we're on the brink of that?
Yeah, well, when you look at when Birmingham went bankrupt, I think they call it Section 106, don't they? When they declared that, the Local Government Association did a survey of all LGAs and 25% of them said they were just about to go bankrupt. This has been what people have been saying for donkey's years. The graph of doom is when social care becomes so expensive to a local authority and council tax brings in so little because they can never put it up that they're spending, there isn't anything else. There isn't even money to put the bins out. And that's kind of more or less where we are. I feel for local authorities because actually what they needed was a complete overhaul of the council tax bands, but no government will ever, ever, ever be brave enough to do it because it will really, really mess with people's bills.
What about hiking the TV licence fee? Will they be brave enough to do that, Henry? This is a front page of The Express.
I mean, they have to, right? I mean, if nothing else, it's just inflation and things are expensive. And this is the same discussion that we have whenever it's anything that government pays for, be it local or central, which is that either you hold funding down and you, as a politician, get a short-term, boost from being the person who held the funding down, but over time, that whatever that institution is just runs out of money and starts to fall to pieces. And we've seen this across local government, we've seen this on public infrastructure and public transport. Or you have to take the hit of, I'm going to make something more expensive in the middle of a cost of living crisis. And politically, there's no real winning answer to that. And the problem that we have in this country is that the short-term incentive for politicians is always to be like, no fee increase, and you just pass on the increasingly decrepit, whatever it is, to your successors.
But Zoe, some MPs saying that it's a death wish for the BBC if the licence fee is increased.
Look, it's not a death wish in the sense that there's nothing else they can do, so they've got to do it. But there has been so much mismanagement with the TV licence, and actually it was all about enforcement of the payment. They've caused so much ill will that a huge number of over 75s are now just conscientiously objecting and not paying because they know that they won't be taken to court because they're over 75. And a huge number of the under 75s who haven't been taken to court are getting taken to court and judgments passed against them when they didn't even know they were in court. They've bought themselves some really bad will at a time when people don't really need a TV licence because they're not really consuming news in the same way and they're not consuming TV in the same way.
Yeah.
So I really have a lot of sympathy and I really love the BBC, but I just don't... I think there's a lot of memos they haven't got.
Period.
Yeah.
Let's move on to something a little lighter now, to a coin design that's flipping heads. A commemorative 50-cent piece and special $5 coin featuring the late Queen is drawing criticism in Australia. They've been produced to mark the centenary of Elizabeth II's birthday. Commentary online has described the portrait as deeply unflattering. The Royal Australian Mint says the full beauty of a design isn't always best captured when etched in metal. What do we think of the coin?
I'm trying to figure out who it actually looks like, because it definitely doesn't look like the Queen, but it doesn't look exactly like Alan Carr, but it looks like somebody like that. It looks like a bloke in a pub.
In any pub, anywhere.
Any bloke, any pub. But seriously, if you kind of take the hair off...
Oh, dear.
And then that slightly kind of thin-lipped
One of the suggestions has been Mrs Doubtfire. Remember Mrs Doubtfire?
I think Mrs Doubtfire is too feminine for this.
Oh, my goodness.
I think the thing about this, one, there's a reason that people back to Rome have put the side of a head on a coin. Just keep doing that.
Do you think that's better? My profile is worse than my head on.
Well, I mean, not so in this case, but also, I think if you're the Royal Mint and you're making coins and your defence is, well, the design doesn't always look its best on a coin. It's like, well, then do a different design. Like that seems to be like 101. If your design doesn't look good on the thing it's on, that's a reason not... That's the thing that absolutely knocked me for six with this story. It's an ugly coin. It is only commemorative. It's obviously already sold out to collectors because coin collectors will buy ugly coins the way they'll buy anything else. Yeah. But it was just that level of institutional dysfunction where somebody at the Australian Mint was like, I know what we'll say. It's just that we've got a design that doesn't work on coins, and that's the defence.
Sorry about that. It doesn't work. Yes, that's the defence. Thank you both. Very interesting discussion, and we're not fans of the coin, I think we can safely say. Next in the sport. British #1 Emma Raducanu reaches her first final since 2021. We'll tell you where.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky Security and Defence Editor. The reality of life under Russian fire. People don't want to leave, even though help is here to evacuate them. They say they want to sort out their belongings first. It's absolute chaos. Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety, as Russian drones will be trying to find this position. We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming. I've been covering Russia's full-scale war since it began, witnessing the terror and the trauma.
When rockets fall, I try to hide my head under my toys.
Illustrating Ukraine's lost childhood, hopes and dreams framed by war. Conflict in the Middle East is another major focus.
An incredibly dangerous moment. We saw the missiles streaking across the sky. We saw the intercept going up, and then we saw the explosions when the intercepts were successful.
With global threats rising, I also explored defence and security in the UK and across NATO. This US aircraft carrier is operating in European waters in a deliberate show of force. This is routine training for NATO, but should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real. Tucked away in the National Archives are some of the UK's old defence plans. The scale of this bunker underlines how seriously governments took the threat of nuclear attack and global conflict. Should allies listen to Vladimir Putin's sabre-rattling?
No, they shouldn't, and they don't.
Sky News, the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Rich and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
You are watching The Wrap. Now, after days of bizarre controversies, including claims of dodgy helmets and even allegations of performance-enhancing injections in the nether regions, the Winter Olympics were officially opened this evening. While Mariah Carey stole the show as the curtain was raised at the San Siro, some competitors are already well underway in their events, including Britain's curlers. Let's bring in our sports correspondent, Rob Harris. Now, Rob, good to see you. I was a little bit sheepish about talking about the injections, but you're going to fill us in on the controversy surrounding that, and that is the crotch enhancement injections. What's happening there? Oh. Rob can't hear me because he's just walked off. Walked off. Walked off set. Are you back with us, Rob? We're all too embarrassed to talk about this story. Go on, you talk about it.
Yeah. So well, there's an opening ceremony tonight, but so much the talk of these games, which I imagine you have just been talking about, is the slightly absurd situation we found ourselves in, talking about why some ski jumpers might be injecting a form of acid into their genitals to make it larger, to help ensure they get a larger uniform and to be able to have a bigger ski suit that gives them greater aerodynamic lift through the sky to increase their competitive advantage. But here tonight at the San Siro, it was all about the opening ceremony. It should have lasted 2.5 hours. It went on an hour longer than expected. Quite a spectacle it was, not only here in Milan, we also had the secondary site in Cortina, 250 miles away, because this is an Olympics spread out across a vast footprint of northern Italy. But the focal point here in Milan, we had Mariah Carey singing in Italian, wowing the locals with that 1950s hit Volare. Later on, Andrea Bocelli singing Nessun Dorma, so renowned for being the anthem of the 1990 World Cup and an unofficial anthem back here all those years ago. But the athlete parade was highly unusual because we had some athletes parading here, some in Cortina. We had 2 Team G flag bearers, one here, one up in the mountains. And while there was some big cheers on here for Ukraine, for instance, we did hear some booing of the Israeli athletes. When the Americans came in, there were cheers. But then when the US Vice President J.D. Vance appeared on the big screen, there were clearly audible jeers inside the stadium. So not quite chiming with the message of unity delivered by the IOC President Kirsty Coventry, but the hope is that these games become a symbol of the compassion and courage that can be a spirit of sport over these next couple of weeks, rather than those divisions in the world. And that was one of the messages in the opening ceremony. Charlie Theron delivering it as well, about trying to bring everyone together through the Winter Olympics rather than being divided.
Rob, thank you so much for that. You may walk off now. You've done your turn. Thank you so much. Well, I mean,
I was urgently looking something up.
Oh, no, what?
Yes, which was the French pole vaulter Anthony Amorati from 2024's Olympics, who got so much attention for his incredibly tight leggings while he was pole jumping that, like, there was actually a petition that he should get the gold medal. Maybe he won it anyway. Anyway, the point is...
Gold medal for what?
Just for existing, Gillian. The point is that I don't think they are cheating, the ski jumpers. I think they're just they just feel very exposed after the pole vaulting gate, pole vaulting penis gate, that now it's all aesthetic. It's all aesthetic. It's like us having Botox.
I was avoiding that word, but I mean, it is genital enhancement. That's the claim. I mean, this hasn't been proven. But when it was put to the World Anti-Doping Agency in their news conference, they did find it mildly amusing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about the science of the aerodynamics of ski jumping to be able to comment on whether or not it's plausible that they have this motivation other than vanity. But it is
You say that so judgmentally.
of them. But I think it is broadly, the broader issue of where to draw the line on terms of this kind of thing is something that the Olympics have been grappling with for decades. It was originally an amateur contest, and then the Russians made them all army, and the Americans made them all college students, and so then it went professional. And now you have full teams of scientists trying to work out how to get the tiniest fraction of an advantage. I think the simplest thing would be to actually just have two Olympics. You have the normal Olympics, and then you could have the Super Olympics, where athletes co-sponsored by Raytheon and Pfizer do the 100 metres in 3 seconds, and leave the normal athletics to people who aren't doing quite so much science.
I'm not sure I can endorse that theory, but it is a theory. It's an idea. Thank you both for the moment. Let's get the latest sports news now with Josh.
Perfect, thank you very much. A footballer's life is all about moving. I never had a problem with that because I was the one that was progressing in my football career.
The Crazy Gang's welcoming committee were making sure their new arrival enjoyed a warm welcome.
I'd had a small arthroscopy operation, and at that particular time there was a lot of clubs interested in me.
But in a last-minute twist, Wimbledon learned John Hartson would not be moving as Spurs.
John Hartson was last week tipped to be on his way across South London for £5 million. That seems a dead deal.
I don't want to do any more medicals, to be honest.
I can't pass a medical because of this knee.
A downbeat John Hartson was rushed out of Ibrox today, having been given the worst possible news.
We did not believe he was at the correct fitness at that particular time to go straight into Champions League.
Very seldom you see a player in the building walking around at a club and the deal isn't done.
I'm starting to question myself. I'm starting to think, well, where do I go from here?
The best medical he ever failed. I knew about his injuries, but that didn't matter to me because I think John had played 20 consecutive games for Coventry.
I was going to an absolute giant in Celtic Football Club.
Another season, another club for John Hartson.
So I've proved that my knee's fine and my fitness is good.
This was my complete say. I think he wanted to prove his fitness, and I think he wanted to prove Rangers wrong.
And here's Hartson!
Celtic fans hold John in the highest regard.
Incredible silver medal.
Celtic Football Club, to me, is a very special place.
When we come back, officers investigating allegations against Peter Mandelson search 2 properties. Stay with us.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live.
They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Richard Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Tonight on The Wrap, a dramatic development in the Peter Mandelson investigation. Police searched 2 properties linked to the disgraced former ambassador amid allegations he passed market-sensitive information to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Also tonight, the White House blames a member of staff for a video on Donald Trump's social media account depicting the Obamas as apes. As Steve Wright is sentenced for a 6th murder, a woman targeted by him in the 90s tells Sky News those he killed may still be alive if police had taken her seriously.
The police came, but they didn't believe me at all. They treated me like a silly little girl.
And after days of bizarre controversies, the curtain is raised on the Winter Olympics in Italy. We discuss the day's biggest stories with Zoe Williams from The Guardian and Henry Hill from Conservative Home. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Well, it's been a week since US officials released 3.5 million documents relating to Jeffrey Epstein, ending the political career of Peter Mandelson and perhaps signalling the beginning of the end of Sir Keir Starmer's time in number 10. Is it the beginning of the end for Sir Keir Starmer?
I think Keir Starmer was arguably mortally wounded before this happened. You know, people have been talking about him leaving for at least 6 weeks. And if he's got any sense, he'll make a decision fast, not slow.
Henry?
Yeah, I don't know about the beginning. I essentially agree. We will only know how far it was through it afterwards. But he has nothing to look forward to. Right? His government is listless. He can't deliver his agenda. He can't deliver a budget. And if he holds on, all that really will happen is he'll hold on and then he'll own what looks set to be a catastrophic set of local elections.
Well, tonight, signs that the police investigation into Peter Mandelson is gathering pace, a warning there's some flash photography coming up. Well, officers searched 2 properties linked to the disgraced former ambassador this evening, one in North London, the other in Wiltshire. Mandelson is being investigated over allegations of misconduct in public office, amid claims he passed sensitive government information to Epstein while he was a cabinet minister. Tonight, the Prime Minister has written to Parliament's security watchdog, which will assess which documents relating to Peter Mandelson can be made public. In his letter to the Intelligence and Security Committee, Sir Keir Starmer says the government will work quickly and transparently, but he warned a very significant volume of material will need to be reviewed. Well, our political correspondent Rob Howell has joined us in the studio tonight with developments with the police searching Peter Mandelson's home, but also political developments for Sir Keir Starmer, really.
Yeah, I think it just sort of cranks up the heat around the politics, really. The sight of police officers about 4 p.m. this afternoon heading into Peter Mandelson's London home near Regent's Park in central London and his Wiltshire home as well, emerging a couple of hours later with boxes presumably full of evidence. This is all part of an investigation into alleged misconduct in public office. Now, that's a crime, a common law offence with no maximum sentence, so a maximum sentence of life imprisonment, potentially. So we're not there yet, but if we get to a charge, you will have a jury trial, potentially more information coming out there, and potentially a custodial sentence as well. It all obviously relates to the disclosures that came from those Epstein emails, which appeared to show Peter Mandelson essentially telling Jeffrey Epstein about sensitive details relating to EU bailouts while he was a business minister, sensitive details relating to the inner workings of the UK government as well. Also details about Gordon Brown and when he was going to leave office. Gordon Brown's written in The Guardian tonight, saying that he regrets having ever appointed Peter Mandelson and basically says it's a disgrace that at a time that they were trying to look after people across the country, he was basically enriching himself. So an attempt to distance on multiple fronts from multiple people to put as much distance as possible between themselves and Peter Mandelson.
And then the question is, Zoe, why this distance wasn't... They didn't try to achieve this distance long before now, because his history was known.
His history was completely known. And if you remember the FT expose, which came after all the 2008-2009 revelations, was pretty comprehensive about Mandelson's relationship with Epstein and what Mandelson knew when. It actually didn't go far enough, but it hinted a huge amount. Mandelson being right there in the centre of it. I mean, nobody knew until recently about the photograph of him in his underpants talking to an undisclosed woman holding a computer. But there was nothing mysterious about any of this. What I do think is mysterious is it's nobody... Well, I wouldn't have predicted that he would be handing Epstein state secrets because it just doesn't seem to... It baffles belief that somebody would be so disloyal. It's, your friends. There are things I don't tell my friends. Nothing demands you to tell a friend what the EU's bailout plan is.
For the master political operator,
Exactly.
It does feel like at some point an alarm bell should have gone off by the time you're telling someone that.
Or at the very least, it feels like if you're going to say that to somebody, you're going to say it over the phone. You're not going to put it in an email. So I'm quite surprised about that, but nothing else could possibly surprise me about Mandelson.
Could you still be surprised further, Henry?
Oh no! If only because I've got no expectations of him at this point. So there's nothing to be disappointed. It's not like there's some little cherished bit of Peter Mandelson's reputation that I'm still holding out hope will emerge untarnished from all of this. But I think, again, just to echo Zoe's point, like, even if you're going to sell state secrets or even just give them away, don't do that by email, right? You don't write that down. like Peter Mandelson is supposed to have been one of the great master political operators of the past 30 years. And he doesn't know not to put crimes against the state on paper. It's just the whole thing. One of the disenchanting things about politics is obviously there's lots of genuinely horrible stuff about all of this, but it's just like realising that there's actually no secret room full of clever people who are masterminding everything. A lot of it is just really bad decisions by people who do things like this and then write it down.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he was known for his brilliance, and that was... Because of that was the risk that Sir Keir Starmer was prepared to take, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the calculation was that sort of Washington under Trump had quite a few, you know, dicey dudes with loose morals moving around it, and we needed someone that could basically sort of hang with them, someone that was, you know, unafraid to maybe get a bit down and dirty occasionally, and that probably wasn't. And I mean, I think this is probably a fair estimation. That probably wasn't a sort of career diplomat that had spent their life in embassies around the world and the Foreign Office. Whether it was someone who was close friends with a convicted paedophile, probably not that either.
But when you said that the possible criminal charges had no maximum sentence, there must be a tariff.
Well, it's common law. It's a common law sentence, so it's not decided by. It's basically created by judges.
Right.
So in theory, you don't get life sentence for it, but I think the max is usually like 3 or 4 years. But I don't think, technically, the maximum is life.
Yeah, Parliament's never actually set a maximum, so that's why...
It's sort of one of those laws.
So what did Kim Philby get?
Oh, I've no clue.
I've no clue either.
I think murder is a common law as well, which is why we don't have first and second degree murder in Britain the way they do in lots of other countries, because Parliament has never codified it.
That is the reason, because Parliament's never actually said it.
OK, I'd like to make clear, none of us are accusing anybody in politics of having murdered anyone.
Not at this point.
Yeah. There's a lot of files.
Not today.
Just to say, we need to issue the statement from Mandelson that he's put out. I was wrong to believe Epstein following his conviction and to continue my association with him afterwards. I apologise unequivocally for doing so to the women and girls who suffered. So still denying any wrongdoing, and he hasn't been arrested and he hasn't even been brought in for questioning, has he?
No, none of that's happened. It's at an investigation point at the moment. I was looking for this earlier, I haven't seen a specific response from Peter Mandelson on some of the accusations contained in the emails around leaking the information and things like that. So I'm not sure what his position is on that. But look, yeah, at some point as well, we will likely see what his responses were to number 10 when these questions were put to him about his continuing relationship and friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. These are the ones that Keir Starmer has basically said were misleading, that he was attempting to portray this relationship, that he barely knew the guy. And so I guess we will find out more of what he was saying at the time. But look, there may well come a time where, Peter Mandelson has to answer in a more fulsome way for all of this stuff.
Zoe, there have been those that have likened this political scandal to the Profumo affair, which brought down a government. And could this be Starmer's Profumo?
I had this argument with a very fierce Starmer loyalist on Thursday, who was like, this isn't even a blip on the horizon. And the other person was saying, this is the most serious scandal of my lifetime. And he was in his 50s. The fact is, there is such a crisis of judgment and wisdom and values in appointing Mandelson, which many people, not just Angela Rayner, many people, Labour stalwarts, pointed out to Starmer and his inner circle when he did it. That would it be the same if governments weren't constantly in crisis at the moment, if they didn't topple like Skittles? Would they have found a way to gate it off? Or would it explode in exactly the same way, much like Profumo? I think probably the second. I think even if we weren't living through this uniquely febrile time, it would still be career-ending for more than a few people.
I'm going to leave the prediction to you, Henry. Will this be the end of Sir Keir Starmer? Will this be his undoing?
There are so many other things that could go wrong, but yes, it will certainly be a big part of it.
Oh, right, OK, we've got a clear answer there. Well, a couple of tomorrow's front pages on this story. The Sun, writing of police rummaging in Mandelson's homes, while the Times reports that Angela Rayner told friends she warned Sir Keir Starmer not to appoint Mandelson as US ambassador in the first place, as Zoe was saying. All of the front pages coming up for you at 11:30. Now, next tonight, the most racist thing I've seen out of this White House, that the verdict of a Republican senator this evening after Donald Trump's social media account posted a video in which Barack and Michelle Obama were depicted as apes. It's since been deleted, but not before the White House called criticism of the video fake outrage. Our US correspondent Mark Stone explains.
We need to talk about President Trump's social media account, his habits, his judgment, his posts. By now, you've probably heard about or maybe even seen the offensive image which appeared on his account late on Thursday night. It was a video depicting Barack and Michelle Obama as apes. It was up for 12 hours before the White House removed it. We're not going to show you the image itself, but this was the offending post, published at midnight. It's a screen record of a video about claims of election fraud. At the end of the screen record, the election video flips to the video depicting the Obamas as apes. The initial White House response from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt expressed no regret and no backtrack. She said this is from an internet meme video depicting President Trump as the king of the jungle and the Democrats as characters from The Lion King. Please stop the fake outrage and report on something today that actually matters to the American public. Then, a couple of hours later, after some significant intervention led by the only black Republican senator, Tim Scott, who was outraged, there came a new White House statement. A White House staffer erroneously made the post. It has been taken down. So this raises a load of new questions. If we're to believe this second statement, then why is a White House staffer on the president's official account at midnight and posting this stuff? And listen to this. Between 10:36 on Thursday night and 5:46 on Friday morning, there were 71 posts. Look at the range too. The first post of the night is about Barack Obama. A post inferring that America's elections are not secure. There are then some about Epstein, some about election fraud, a lot about polling, and even a video meme about a dog. So was all this his staffer, or was it the president himself? We do know that others have access to the account. The more official statements are often dictated by the president and then posted by others. Look, I think there are two takeaways here. First, there is a risk that all this becomes normalised. The president's official account posting this sort of stuff, racist videos, this is not normal. And second, yes, this administration is more accessible than any before it. The president is in front of the cameras all the time, but that doesn't make it any more accountable. Trump's White House seems to be beyond accountability, intentionally so.
And Caroline Leavitt in that news conference saying that this is fake outrage, all the criticism is fake outrage. I mean, it's outrageous, isn't it?
It's really disgusting. And to be told, to be kind of, you know, toxified in public life, to have this kind of racist bilge paraded before not just the American media, but the world's media, and then get schooled by the press secretary on how your outrage is fake. We've got to see this for what it is. It's a deliberate slap in the face. It's a deliberate slap in the face to the values of anti-racism. It's a deliberate slap in the face to the values of thinking people are equal. We've got to start seeing it for what it is. Because if we keep on like, oh, maybe it was late at night, maybe he's a bit senile, maybe he's this, maybe he's that, maybe it was a staffer, maybe it was... If we keep on like this, we're just sleepwalking into something really dark.
But to keep it up for 12 hours, I mean, that's the thing that's really indefensible, isn't it?
Well, I mean, also posting it, but,
well, no,
but yes, it's the thing is, one, he almost certainly posted it. The rest of them being posted throughout the night, you know, if you're an official social media account, there are things that can post things. But if you're a staffer working for the president, you don't put a video up that's you doing a screen record of a video, right? That's just grossly unprofessional. But you do that maybe if you're the president and you're just scrolling these videos at night. But also the defence. The defence is, oh, it was a video about the Lion King. It's like, okay, but it still made the decision to depict the Obamas as like that's no defence at all. And it is absolutely, I mean, I don't know if it's shocking because it's Donald Trump and we all have our expectations about him, but nonetheless, like in a broader sense, it's the fact that not only did this happen, not only was this something that was on his feed, not only was this something which it didn't occur to him not to put up, but that in that building, a building full of people who, broadly speaking, at least at the lower levels, know how to do the basics of their job, there was either no awareness of just how rancid this was, or people making the decisions genuinely didn't care and thought that they could tough it out. And that is just absolutely extraordinary, because even in the discourse about racism today and the right and left disputes about it, the fraction, even of the sort of hard right, who openly trade in that kind of imagery these days is quite small. It's just absolutely extraordinary.
The thing is, every single time it happens, it kicks down the door for something worse to happen. And Trump has been doing this since 2015, when he launched his first presidential bid with a claim that Mexicans were exporting their rapists. You know, he's been making openly racist remarks about Latinos, about black people, about Somalians, about everybody, about Arabs, about everybody, for now 11 years. And every single thing he does kicks down the door, pushes open the window for something worse to come, not just by him, but by one of his allies. We've got to wake up to it.
Yeah, and there's also a long history of him attacking Obama, you know, starting with the birther conspiracy that he wasn't even born in the United States of America.
Yeah, I mean, he fundamentally is a conspiracy theorist. And he has taken every opportunity to try and come up with various ways to discredit his opponents. There was the birther thing, his insistence that the election was stolen, for which there is no evidence whatsoever. He is fundamentally, whatever else he is, a brittle narcissist who just can't stand any part of the world repudiating his self-image of himself as the greatest man alive. And he will sell those lies to his supporters. So in a way, yes, I don't think anyone was really in doubt at this point that Donald Trump was racist. This fits the broad pattern of a consistent pattern of behaviour. But nonetheless, and maybe it's a bit naive on my part, but just that specific imagery is just the kind of thing that you would just expect even just an intelligent racist to know not to use, right? It's so out of...
Is there such a thing as an intelligent racist?
Well, yeah, I'm grading on a curve, obviously. But, like, you dog whistles, right? That's where we get dog whistles from, right? It's somebody who knows where the line is. They want to cross it, but they're trying to at least be a bit cunning about it. But this is just absolutely breathtakingly...
But that's exactly it, right? It's the reason he didn't know where the line was is because it's not an accident. He's crossing the line on purpose and vice signalling as a thing. And, you know, you can look back at Austrian politics in the 80s for kind of open things that could never be said. It's about anti-Semitism, and you're like, and it was so extraordinary, but it is strategic.
Becomes
it's strategic.
Yeah. Quite telling, though, that we've had Republicans like Tim Scott saying that it's disgraceful, and even the Republicans against Trump, that there's no bottom, and that's their take on what he's put out. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, after he was sentenced to a further 40 years today, we hear from another woman targeted by the serial killer, Steve Wright.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Richard Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra al-Baghir has this report. And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
You are watching The Wrap. Zoe and Henry still with us. A woman targeted by serial killer Steve Wright has told Sky News that the 6 women he murdered may still be alive today if the police had taken her seriously. Wright, who's already serving a whole life term, was sentenced to at least 40 years in prison today for the murder of Victoria Hall in 1999. The night before, he tried to abduct Emily Doherty. She's spoken exclusively to Sky's Emma Birchley and told her that when she reported the incident, police treated her like a silly little girl.
For 26 years, Emily Doherty has felt sure the man who tried to abduct her was the same man who would kidnap 17-year-old Vicky Hall 2 miles up the road and then murder her.
I thought that must be him. It can't be a coincidence. The next night, someone else.
Steve Wright would go on to become one of the country's most notorious serial killers, nicknamed the Suffolk Strangler. But when Emily, then aged 22, reported what had happened, she felt no one was listening.
The police came, but they didn't believe me at all. They treated me like a silly little girl.
Wright was already serving a whole life term for murdering 5 sex workers in 2006, now sentenced to a minimum of 40 years for Vicky's murder after pleading guilty at the Old Bailey on Monday.
Even if this was your only life sentence, given your obvious dangerousness and your age, it is extraordinarily unlikely you would ever be released. Given the sentence already imposed for your other dreadful crimes, it is well-nigh certain you will die in prison.
Earlier, the judge had questioned whether the police had explored any connection between what happened to Emily and Vicky back in 1999, asking if there had or would be an inquiry into what went wrong. So far, there hasn't. The investigation was only reopened in 2019.
The strength of our case, which featured a wealth of evidence, gave him little option but to admit his guilt. Quite simply, he represents the very worst of humanity and is exactly where he belongs, in prison.
The memories of that night remain clear in Emily's mind.
I remember the first instance I saw him. The door was open. The engine was running and he was standing by the car. He saw me and I saw him. I bricked it. I pegged it.
She jumped over walls, knocked on doors with no response, at one point peering around the corner on all fours to see if he'd gone.
Suddenly, he was literally right there. He stepped right into me. He said, "All right," in a low, sleazy way. In that instance, I knew my life was in danger.
Eventually, someone did open their door and called 999. But in court, it was revealed that no crime report was lodged and no lead came from the partial number plate Emily provided, despite the fact that only 2 cars featuring the right letters and number were registered in relevant locations, and one of them was Wright's. The night Vicky disappeared, she'd left her friend just 300 metres from her home after walking back from a club in the early hours. Shortly after, screams were heard, as well as a car being driven away at speed. It would take 5 days for her body to be found by a dog walker, dumped naked in a ditch 25 miles away. Vicky's mum died in December, never knowing for sure that Wright had killed her daughter.
Victoria was a loving girl with a whole life before her, with plans of what she wanted to achieve. All this was snatched away from her by Steve Wright. We lost our lovely daughter, sister, niece, granddaughter, have endured 26 years of hell, which will continue from today onwards and forever.
The police say DNA advances helped achieve justice.
This was always about Victoria Hall and her family. They've been front and centre and a consistent source of motivation to the police investigation team. They've shown strength, courage, dignity and support to the investigation team, and our thoughts remain with them today and for the time ahead.
Questions remain about whether there'll be an inquiry into potential missed opportunities. It's something Emily would certainly welcome.
There's the guilt of not being heard. You can't help thinking, if they had taken me seriously, Vicky would have survived. But certainly if they had found him sooner, the 5 other women might still be here.
Emma Birchley, Sky News at the Old Bailey.
Henry, heart-wrenching to think that Emily Doherty's living with guilt when she did exactly the right thing but just wasn't listened to.
Yeah, and I think she knows, you can't help feeling guilt, but I think she knows that she's not the party at fault here. I mean, there's so much that's tragic and inexplicable and horrible about this, but it's just the fact that even if you're a police officer who, for whatever reason, was not minded to take this report particularly seriously on the night, if within a week you find a dead girl, do you not follow up on a clear lead about a man who was threatening a woman? Like, that seems to be such an obvious thing, especially as your VT just said, she had a number plate that led to his car, right? So actually, it's like, were there missed opportunities? Yes. It's obviously, it's hard to speculate about the past, but it does seem to be that there was a very, very clear case, opportunity here to save potentially the lives of several women from a murderous predator. And I want to know why the police, what culture in the police, what decision in the police led to them missing that.
There wasn't even an official crime report.
No, and it's interesting when you listen to it, both in the language she uses about her experience, both in the lack of an official crime report, it doesn't sound like late 90s policing, it sounds like 70s policing, in which it was absolutely routine to disbelieve victims. The younger a victim was, the more likely they would be to be disbelieved, even though, obviously, that's often the victim profile. Ridiculous, but when you see that dragging into the 90s and having the tale of 5 more murders in 2006, which is when the sex workers were killed that Steve Wright killed, it makes you realise how glacial the pace of change is in the police. It's really, really dispiriting. And, you know, we know from Sarah Everard that glacial pace is not limited to Suffolk Police, and it's not over yet.
Suffolk Police just say they're saying that in light of the guilty plea by Steve Wright, that there will be a joint major investigation team looking and appealing for more information.
I mean, better late than never, I suppose. I think there's something else that Zoe said earlier which is really important, which is that you need, in order to catch these people, you do need victims to feel confident coming forward, right? You need them to feel that they will not be belittled, at the very least, that they'll be ideally taken seriously. Because otherwise, if somebody in future feels so dispirited by what they've seen about the police and the way that the police treats women and the way that the police treats victims, that they just don't think it's worth the bother, then there's no opportunity, then these opportunities to catch people will be missed. And so actually, things like this, they don't just produce the failures of the specific case, although those were egregious and had terrible human consequences. They also directly damage the ability of the police to prevent things like this in future, which is why I think it's so important that we do find out what on earth was going on at that police force at this time.
Yeah, I mean, this murder from 1999, but do you think that women now believe that they will be taken seriously by police officers?
Well, there's a complete two-track thing going on, which is the rhetoric around taking women seriously, around believing her, around all of that stuff, has moved by, like, light years away from 1999, or 1970s for that matter. But actual conviction rates for sexual violence, rape, murder, well, not murder, but the actual conviction rates for sexual violence are so low that it has effectively been decriminalised. So you could go to the police.
I don't think you can say it's been decriminalised.
Come on, when you've got conviction rates of, like, in some places 1.5% of reported crimes, like, that is not a crime that is getting punished. It's just not. And that is about chaos in the court system. That's not necessarily about police problems. And a lot of the police have amazing, amazing processes around reporting of rape and sexual violence. Nevertheless, a lot of women, you know, if they're looking at a case that's going to grind on for 7 years and take out 7 years of their life, every single which one is going to be a nightmare, they're not going to report, and then it's not really a crime.
OK. Should we take a look at some of the other stories making the newspapers for you? Well, dominated, should we say, by the police raid on Peter Mandelson's homes, and the Eye reports that the 72-year-old is likely to be questioned in the coming days. The Mail pictures police knocking on the door of his £12 million London home. The Sun characterises the police search as rummaging through Mandy's drawers. The Telegraph also leads on the same story, while The Times reports that Angela Rayner has told friends she warned the Prime Minister against appointing Mandelson as US ambassador. The FT looks at worries amongst Starmer allies of market turmoil if MPs move against him. The Guardian claims a Labour minister commissioned an intelligence report on journalists investigating the Labour Together think tank, which helped propel Sir Keir Starmer to power. At the time, it was led by Josh Simmons, who's now a Cabinet Office minister. Sky News has been told Labour Together did hire the company in question, but did so to investigate the sourcing of stories, not to dig up information on journalists. Mr. Simmons has told us tonight that the claims are nonsense. The Mirror hears from a woman who escaped the Suffolk Strangler, Steve Wright, who says there was a missed chance to stop him, as we heard in our report. A death wish for the BBC. That's how the rise in the TV licence fee is described in the Express. So let's delve into the front page of the FT. Coming at the Mandelson story from a slightly different angle, and really in terms of how the jitters being given to the markets, that might be the result of any move to remove Starmer from position because of the revelations.
Yeah, everyone hates being a prisoner of the bond markets until they're the reason that you can't lose your job. Essentially, Sir Keir Starmer's allies are saying, probably not wrongly, that if there was a leadership contest, especially given the market assessment of Angela Rayner and the likely direction of that Labour leadership contest, that there would be some sort of market panic. And as we have already seen, given how indebted the UK government is now, a market panic could have quite serious implications. Now, I mean, that's, in a way, simply another step along our road to having a much more sort of Mediterranean style of politics. I don't think we're quite at the point of having the European Central Bank appoint our prime ministers, as they sometimes do in Italy. But nonetheless, it is a sign of desperation, I think, because although there might be some merit to the argument, as prime minister, you absolutely don't want the case for your premiership to be the markets will panic if I leave. That's a really negative reason to be the best case your allies have to give to the press.
I think the thing is, as well, is that they got really used, politicians, prime ministers particularly, got really used to the bond markets punishing people for being too left-wing. And it's really easy to not be too left-wing for the bond markets. You just stop being so left-wing, right? But since Liz Truss, and since she actually brought down more chaos upon both pension funds, homeowners, mortgage holders, so much chaos still to come. Arguably, how crazy she's gone since is a kind of delusional response to how much chaos she brought upon the country.
How crazy she's gone since?
Well, she was in a Telegraph giving some very spicy views about the ICE shooting of Renee Good. I don't know if you saw. I mean, it was really not very conservative.
You're not a fan of her new YouTube channel.
Small C conservative. Anyway,
we digress.
That's not the point. The point is that now the bond markets punish anyone. They won't just punish a lefty. They won't punish somebody for being too left. They'll punish anyone who looks really insecure and anyone who looks like they're just about to make a hash of everything. So it's put all prime ministers on this kind of horrible notice where they don't know which direction they're going to get it from, but they're going to get it from some direction if they don't show a competence which they can't always have.
Is it a positive, though, that the Prime Minister can say, I bring stability and the markets are dictating that I stay and should I go, there will be chaos, a la Liz Truss?
I mean, it's definitely better than the opposite. Right, it's better. It's better than him saying, "I am an agent of chaos and the bond markets hate my guts," for sure. And I think that there, as I said, there is an element of truth to it, in as much as I think that the bond markets and the markets in general would be very worried about the direction of a Labour leadership contest and the likely impact it would have on public spending. But broadly, this is a miserable trap that every British government is in at this point. Effectively, we are now so heavily mortgaged, we're borrowing so much, and we are so sensitive to any fluctuation in the price of borrowing that prime ministers are on a set of rails set for them by market conditions. And whilst it might be all right in the moment as a way of propping yourself up so that you can survive long enough to be ditched in May over another catastrophe that's definitely going to happen, it's a really miserable statement about our politics that's where we are.
OK, Henry and Zoe, thank you very much for the moment. We are going to take a break, and next we'll have much more from tomorrow's newspapers. Stay with us.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Big Sky News journalist. Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
You are watching the wrap. More from tomorrow newspapers with Zoe and Henry. Let us take a look at the Times. No, not the Times, the Telegraph. Trump steps up sanctions on Iran. The US imposed more sanctions against Iran as talks got off to a hesitant start. Henry.
Yeah, fresh from a reminder of the kind of man Donald Trump is, a reminder of how much power he wields, which is always sobering. Essentially, one of the things where actually America was potentially being a force for good in the world recently has been that it has been putting a lot of pressure on the Iranian government about after the crackdown in Iran against protesters, which, you know, there were lots of people scheduled to be executed. Now, Oman is playing its usual role as the kind of backdoor diplomacy approach, and there have been negotiations between the US and Tehran. And what this is saying is that they don't necessarily seem to be going particularly well, because immediately after those talks ended, the US didn't just step up sanctions against both individuals connected with the Iranian regime and ships connected with Iranian oil trade, but they've also deployed an aircraft carrier group into the region, which is a show of force at the very least. And perhaps they feel that the Iranians aren't taking them seriously. But it is, if nothing else, it is a sobering reminder that whilst we often have to just look at the absolute spectacle that is American politics at the moment, America still plays an enormously important role in the world. And it's a tragedy that it's in the hands that it's in.
And says one thing publicly and another behind closed doors, because obviously you had Donald Trump giving this show of force and saying, you know, a very substantial flotilla's on its way to Iran.
Yeah, one minute he was really giving it all that, as they say in foreign policy circles, and sounded very much like he was going to bomb Iran, and that cast actually British foreign policy into disarray, because at that point, of course, Peter Mandelson wasn't disgraced. This was only 6 days ago, and was saying that he was in favour of it, which wasn't the position of the Prime Minister. It was a mess. But it turned out, luckily, that Donald Trump didn't even mean it, because he wasn't in a position to mean it, and he then came out with a kind of much more emollient, he would prefer to go a diplomatic route. I mean, I think Henry's right that any way he can spin it so that he looks like he's calling the shots, that's good enough for him.
But also it's good to note that always negotiations are going on behind the scenes, regardless of what's said in public. I just want to get to this story in the Times, how rise of ADHD has been a goldmine for private clinics. How so?
This is well, it's not just private clinics, this is actually private equity firms, and it's a really familiar story for anybody who's been around children's home, been around adult social care. Basically, private equity firms have this vulture relationship where they see a sector in which the government has statutory duty, and yet it is failing, whether that's looking after old people, giving children timely diagnoses, looking after people's mental health, looking after children who've been taken away from their parents by the state, and then providing that care, which the state's failing to provide, at astronomically high cost, which then just keeps on pouring out. So at the moment, the NHS is overwhelmed by demand for ADHD diagnoses, and so they're just outsourcing them to these private equity-backed clinics. Now, it's going to be extremely depressing to watch how much money will be hemorrhaged, which then, no doubt, right-wing politicians will blame the kids with ADHD themselves for being so expensive, rather than these profiteers and vultures hovering at the edge of every social state, waiting to bleed it dry.
Henry, for something completely different, as they say, shoplifters crack way to steal premium eggs. Sorry.
We were discussing a slightly puzzling one.
This is in the Times.
Yeah, apparently shoplifters have started swapping out premium eggs for cheap ones, and essentially they get the box with the Burford Browns or whatever it is, and they take out.
You know the name of the expensive ones.
It is in the paper. I obviously have completely normal eggs.
My daughter likes those.
They swap them out, and then they take cheap eggs and they put them in and they put them back on the shelf. Now, In a way, this is not really different to when you're going around and you see that somebody's gouged 2 cans out of a multi-pack or something like that. But on the other hand, this is quite fiddly, right? Like you need to take 6 eggs out, put them somewhere. You need to have 6 eggs. You get 6 eggs from something. It's quite an involved operation for the sake of stealing some eggs, and so it's the logistics of it that I can't really.
It doesn't work, does it?
It's like very, very high skill theft. For eggs.
It's not that high skill. It's high risk.
For eggs, right?
It's high risk. It's high breakage risk. Yeah.
OK, we do not endorse anyone trying to steal eggs from
speak for
the
yourself,
supermarket.
Gillian, I endorse it.
No, we don't. Zoe and Henry, thank you so much for taking us through the papers. We're going to take a break now. Oh, there's a pun. A break and get you to the sport. British #1, Emma Raducanu, reaches her first final since 2021. We'll tell you where.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky's security and defence editor. The reality of life under Russian fire. People don't want to leave, even though help is here to evacuate them. They say they want to sort out their belongings first. It's absolute chaos. Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety, as Russian drones will be trying to find this position.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I've been covering Russia's full-scale war since it began, witnessing the terror and the trauma.
When rockets fall, I try to hide my head under my toys.
Illustrating Ukraine's lost childhood, hopes and dreams framed by war. Conflict in the Middle East is another major focus.
An incredibly dangerous moment.
We saw the missiles streaking across the sky. We saw the intercept going up, and then we saw the explosions when the intercepts were successful.
With global threats rising, I also explored defence and security in the UK and across NATO. This US aircraft carrier is operating in European waters in a deliberate show of force.
This is routine training for NATO, but should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
Tucked away in the National Archives are some of the UK's old defence plans.
The scale of this bunker underlines how seriously governments took the threat of nuclear attack and global conflict. Should allies listen to Vladimir Putin's sabre-rattling?
No, they shouldn't, and they don't.
Sky News, the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Time now to bring you all the very latest sports news with Josh.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Our
footballer's life is all about moving. I never had a problem with that because I was the one that was progressing in my football career.
The Crazy Gang's welcoming committee were making sure their new arrival enjoyed a warm welcome.
I'd had a small arthroscopy operation, and at that particular time there was a lot of clubs interested in me.
But in a last-minute twist, Wimbledon learned John Hartson would not be moving as Spurs.
John Hartson was last week tipped to be on his way across South London for £5 million. That seems a dead deal.
I don't want to do any more medicals, to be honest.
I can't pass a medical because of this knee.
A downbeat John Hartson was rushed out of Ibrox today, having been given the worst possible news.
We did not believe he was at the correct fitness at that particular time to go straight into Champions League.
Very seldom you see a player in the building walking around at a club and the deal isn't done.
I'm starting to question myself. I'm starting to think, well, where do I go from here?
The best medical he ever failed. I knew about his injuries, but that didn't matter to me because I think John had played 20 consecutive games for Coventry.
I was going to an absolute giant in Celtic Football Club.
Another season, another club for John Hartson.
So I've proved that my knee's fine and my fitness is good.
This was my complete say. I think he wanted to prove his fitness, and I think he wanted to prove Rangers wrong.
And here's Hartson!
Celtic fans hold John in the highest regard.
Incredible 7-0.
Celtic Football Club, to me, is a very special place.
These are the two strikers that have grabbed George Graham's eye, and at quite a cost. John Hartson, the teenager, arrives at Highbury in return for a cheque to the tune of £2.5 million.
It's just brilliant for me, like, you know, it's just a dream come true, really, to come to a club as big as Arsenal.
A lot of my career I've moved around. When you get offered to go and sign for big clubs, a footballer's life is all about moving and, you know, resettling, but I never had a problem with that. I went to Luton at 16 on a YTS scheme, progressed, and there was quite a few clubs interested in me at that time.
It's just a new start for me, you know, I've just got to start fresh and just perhaps show people, you know, what I can do.
I had 2 great years at Arsenal. They bid £2.5 million, which was a British teenage transfer record at the time.
He was bought for a certain part of the team, a more physical side. By the way, how good was he in the air? We were good at set pieces, you know, and long throws, and that's what John was fantastic at. In out-and-out 9, that's exactly what John was.
Arsene, this way, please.
Arsene Wenger came in, and I remember Arsene Wenger was superb. And he asked me to stay. He said, look, John, he said there was a few clubs wanting me to sign me, and he said to me, look, we'd really like you.
OK, let's take you through what's happening with the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, a blocked weather pattern means we can expect yet more rain and hill snow this weekend, bringing a risk of further flooding and disruption. It's a grey, windy and wet start for many on Saturday morning, following overnight showers, as well as some hill snow in the north. Well, that leads into another mostly cloudy day with showers or longer spells of rain, especially in southern England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Brisk winds will feed in persistent rain or drizzle to northern England and eastern Scotland, along with some hill snow. There'll be some brighter spells between the bands of showery rain, and it looks as though northwest Scotland escapes largely dry and it'll be bright again.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, that was the wrap. Thank you for watching. All the top stories coming up right here on Sky News.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live.
They have gone up and up. Big Sky News journalist. Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.